This episode of Housing for Good is brought to you by listeners and supporters just like you. If you believe in creating safe, stable, and affordable housing for everyone, consider supporting the McPherson Housing Coalition. Your donation helps us provide housing solutions, support services, and hope to those who need it the most. To donate, visit our website, McPhersonHousingCoalition.org. All donations are tax deductible. Thank you.
Welcome to Housing for Good, a podcast dedicated to housing topics and issues affecting our communities in McPherson County and beyond. With years of experience and expertise, hosts Chris Goodson and Karolyn Moore discuss housing challenges and opportunities with other experts from a variety of housing fields.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Housing for Good, where we talk about housing, stability, and community coming together to create lasting change. I'm Karolyn.
And I'm Chris.
All right, Chris, we are going to have no news.
Really?
No news.
How did that happen? I think we have some news, but I don't want to say it, so we're not talking about it today.
Okay, fine. We're just going to move right into, we have Shiloh Vincent here talking with us about our schools. I know there's a big bond issue we're trying to get passed. We just want to delve right into what is the connection between housing and schools and the facilities that we have. How does that all come together?
Yeah, and the importance of public education. I think people miss that point.
Yeah.
So it'll be great to hear from our superintendent about what's important. Why do we care about public education? What does that matter to anybody? So I'm really excited. I really believe that housing and education are very connected in like a million different ways. Our teachers need housing, our kids need stability, all of that is connected. So are we going to go? Let's go, Shiloh.
So, Shiloh, introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us your position.
You bet.
What is your job?
Well, first off, Karolyn, Chris, awesome to see you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think this is my first official time sitting down for a podcast. I've sat down for interviews, as you can imagine. But never in this kind of a setting. So great to see you and excited for the conversation. My name is Shiloh Vincent, superintendent here in McPherson Public Schools. This is my 6th year serving as the superintendent, and I was here 3 years prior to that, serving just at kind of an assistant superintendent level. Prior to that, I was started out as a social studies teacher and a middle school / high school coach, and I worked up to an assistant principal and then was principal of a large high school here in Kansas before I came to McPherson. But
so you've been in education a number of years.
I think I'm pushing 2 decades, but I'm not yet able to say 2 decades. So that's a positive thing because then it doesn't make me that much older.
Is that how you do it?
My kids say. My daughter said she saw a picture of me the other day and she said, "Wow, you used to have black hair." I was like, that's the nicest way anybody has ever told me I look old.
Okay, I have to tell you, my granddaughter, Mackenzie, she is 21 now. But I have a picture on my wall of my kids when they were little. And she's like, my dad had hair. He has been bald since his 7th grade year of school because he shaved it. And she's never seen him with hair. And she's like, I'm like, yes, sweetheart. He came with hair.
He came with hair, At some point, he made a choice and then age did the rest.
I was pretty young to be making that choice, but okay. That's hilarious. And you also are connected to our community, right? Your wife's from here, your family and all that deep connection.
So, I mean, I mentioned my daughter, but I have 4 kiddos here.
Wow.
4 elementary kiddos, and my wife was a McPherson bull pup, and so we had spent, as I mentioned, we were in Southwest Kansas for about 10 years before we came back to the central part of the state, and McPherson's just, as we're going to talk about, I mean, it's such a great place to be.
It is a great place to be,
and there's amazing people like you helping to make sure that we're providing the very best for all of our community, and there's some really things that we'll talk about, obviously, but there's some things we've seen and conversations that you as the Housing Coalition have gotten started and really kept county-wide that I think everyone should be encouraged to know that there's a lot of interested stakeholders across our county in helping to make sure we're meeting housing needs and in our case, educational needs for every group of people that we get to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so awesome. And, for us, it's been 17 years. So this was not a quick process convincing people that we had a housing problem, right?
Right.
So sometimes when you have an issue out there, wherever you're listening from, we have people listening from all over the country and internationally. If you have a problem, just have some patience because it takes time to get your message out there and for people to see, oh my goodness, this is a problem. This is why it's important. So I want to dive in a little bit, and this is I'm going to ask you the hardest question first, but why is public education so important?
Well, first off, I'd love that that's the question that you're leading with. Public education has been, I like to remind people that's a centuries old effort in the United States. I mean, colonial America, I won't go into the history of it, but clearly it is an integral part of who we are as an American institution, colonial time, through the Revolution, clear up until the current reality. And it's served different purposes over that time. Obviously, the industrial age is what a lot of folks talk about. But why is public school important? It's important for all of the historical reasons, but it's throughout that entire time, it's been here to ensure equitable access to educational opportunities. And so we live in an environment now in 2025 where there's a multitude of ways that you can, quote, go to school. You obviously have private sector, you have virtual pathways, you have a multitude of alternative settings. You can log in to your classrooms, or in our case, you can come to our brick and mortar and experience that. But the role that public education really plays is ensuring that all students, all families always have a place where they can get the best educational access that their community can provide.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Okay,
really
we
can end right now.
Yeah, let's just stop the podcast. He answered the one main question that I had.
So today we're asking, how can communities like ours ensure that both educators and students have a strong foundation that they need both at home and school? So with the current housing market being so competitive,
right,
how does that affect our ability to recruit and retain quality teachers and support staff?
Yeah, so there's a lot to dig into there. One of the things that I think is probably the easiest to say, and you see this in your data, is that what ultimately ends up happening is we'll oftentimes end up having educators that commute in. Mm-hmm. And that can pose some problems, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. We obviously, depending on how far they're commuting, that can be a choice. Like there can be some benefits to McPherson County, for example, being close to about a 45-minute commute to Wichita area. So there's some pros to that, but the ideal would be that we'd have educators and, for that matter, workers across the industry living here locally who really see McPherson as their community identity and really make sure that those same values that they hold for who we are as a community are also then helping to build our community and make sure that it flourishes. So what we're seeing is, and it's no different than a lot of industry, is we're seeing when there's a robust competitive market, that can result in some pricing that causes some people to just not be able to live here locally, so they're commuting in from other locations.
So have you done anything to try to combat that? I mean, you're a school system, you're not a housing group.
Right.
But have you thought about ways to address that, or is there anything you can do?
Well, the best thing we can do is coordinate with great folks like you to help. Number one, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is 17 years and trying to get people to understand that there's a problem. Sometimes we in communities don't fully ever grasp what the challenges are. And so it does take folks like you lifting those up, because I can't, as a school system, solve the housing issue. You actually can't, even just in the great efforts you're making, solve that alone. So it becomes a broader part of the community conversation. And that's what I am seeing in McPherson, again, courtesy of the hard work of you pulling those quarterly meetings together and having dialogue around. I think more people are seeing the challenges that we're facing. For me, I think there's some exciting opportunities that to really think about in a world where we know our facility conversation here locally is how can we realign, reconfigure, best utilize the physical locations of our buildings, the assets that we have as a public school system to accomplish our pre-K-12 and really, quite frankly, a daycare potential solution to help serve our community for really the next, future decades to come. If in doing so, that results in a property that can come offline, then how can we then partner locally with properties that may come up to say, how can that be a housing solution, or how can that property become a location for plots, for things like that?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with being willing to be creative and thinking outside the box. Okay, this is how we've always done it. Obviously, this doesn't work anymore. What challenges can we take, and how can we look at that differently? Somebody said to me today, well, they're calling them tiny homes, they're calling them this and affordable housing. And I said, yes, we're doing that because we have to educate the public about why we need affordable housing, right? They don't even get it. I mean, half the people don't even know what affordable housing is. I mean, it took us a long time to go, what's affordable housing? Well, it's 30% of your income. So that's different for everybody. Everybody in this room probably has a different criteria of what affordable housing is for their family. So you have to look at what population you're wanting to serve and what affordable housing is for that population. So it's the same thing with the school, right? You have to be really creative. Okay, what are we going to do? And I think you've done a pretty good job of going out there and saying, okay, here's some options for the facilities that we need, and which one do you want, and what makes more sense?
Right. Yeah, and I would add one other thing too, which is what creative is the number one. I agree 100%. We're having to think more in 2025. I fundamentally believe we're having to think more creatively than we ever have before. And luckily, McPherson has stakeholders and leaders that are interested and willing to do that. So that's first, but then it also takes the collaboration. And I think that for listeners out there, wherever you're at, certainly one of the things I'm proud of is to see the kind of collaboration, because I can think then, knowing what your goals and what your strategic plan is for the Housing Coalition, I can think about how we in McPherson Public Schools execute on our recently new adopted strategic plan to say, how can what I'm doing support what you're doing?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, we all come at it from a different angle, but we all need to work together to be headed in the same direction.
100%.
Okay, so we've been talking about teachers commuting in, and you mentioned the workforce too. Chris will always say when we're presenting that when somebody drives here to go to work, or they drive here to go to school or whatever, when they take that paycheck and go back home, they're driving out of our community with all of that money to go to another community to support. Right. So besides the commuting, what type of toll does housing instability take on the well-being of our student performance, their attendance, their overall health, and what supports are in place for families and students facing those challenges?
Well, I tell you what, I really appreciate that question about what, and I'll kind of reframe it to say, what role does housing instability play in the overall well-being? I mean, boy, there's a lot to that. We're very fortunate to live in a wonderful community that wraps a lot of supports and care around those in need. It's also a reality that we have populations of our students and their families who are in a great amount of need. And so we refer to the McKinney-Vento Act is how school systems will refer to their efforts with homelessness. And certainly a great deal of our efforts are to make sure, really what we work to do is we train our staff guidance offices on what are some of the signs and the look-fors, what are some things that would help us to get early indication of students and their families who are either living with food insecurity or housing instability, and then how do we start as quickly as possible to wrap supports around them. And so I do think McPherson's blessed to have some number one, amazing staff that are trained and are keeping those signs at the front of their interactions with students and families. And so then we're able to offer supports. And those include anything from certainly from food, helping with short-term housing, connecting with Housing Coalition to make sure that additional resources, and then things like, obviously waiving student fees, making sure lunches are taken care of. Those are a lot of the ways that we do it. Kind of the extension to your question is how does that affect if a child's living couch to couch, or in some cases more dire situations, we know from an outcomes perspective, their likelihood to make it to school goes down tremendously. Their likelihood, if they are able to make it, to be able to focus on anything academic or anything from a student performance is also down. So that's why we work so hard on the front end to make sure we have early indicators that tell us, is this something that the kid is experiencing in their family? And then how can we work as quickly as possible to get resources to them? Because that's the best way of making sure the kid is healthy, the family is able to get some stability to help support then the kiddos as they come to school.
So today, it's not just about educating children.
Yeah.
I mean, you really are having to look at a child as the whole person, this holistic. So I have a story that's really cool. So we had, well, parts of it are cool. Before we had the cottages, we had a family that was living on the western part of the city, which isn't that far because we don't live in a big city. But the little girl was walking from there all the way to the middle school.
Right.
In the terrible weather and all this stuff. And I mean, she was middle school. So we called the school and said, hey, we have this situation. We have this little girl. She's walking. It's freezing. They said, no problem. We'll get a bus for her.
Yep.
So they started picking her up every day for her to get to school. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that was huge.
Well, when it's, if it's 10 degrees out and you got to walk
but just the fact that they were willing to go, well, this isn't what we normally do, but we're happy to do that for her. And I know that they found stability and now they're doing great, but that was such an important thing that the school was willing to say, hey, you know what, we're going to do this for you.
You know, I'll kind of go back to something I wanted to add to to that, as you said it is. What I don't think people realize is something that I'm proud of for McPherson Public Schools is we serve families. We get to interact with the students, but we serve families. And it's those kinds of things that I think are a great example of how our team is very interested in making sure. And it's the exact scenario that you, and it's your vision and mission here at the Coalition to say, we serve families of McPherson in need. We want to make sure that we're providing those needs. We're in the same. And I think that's my kind of echo back to our conversation about public schools. Why is it so important? We serve the whole family. That's our job. That's what we hope to accomplish in the work that we do. And by doing so, we're able to help every kid meet their individual greatness and individual goals. But it is it's a bigger mission than come to school and learn how to do algebra.
Yeah, I think those days are long gone. I know with our special needs adult son that we have, he had some issues because of his birth and some different things. And I told the school at the time, I said, you know, he was adopted, but there's a lot more kids with his high needs coming. And they thanked us for that and said, you know, that's something that we're going to have to consider and prepare for because it's not something that our community ever had to deal with before. And so that was really awesome. I mean, after everything, advocating for somebody can be very challenging, especially I have a bit of a temper. I'm mostly, I'm nice, but if you...
Have you ever shown that on the podcast?
No, I have not. I try to control myself. I try to be funny and try to laugh it around. But if it has something to do with my family or my kids or my parents, I've had to advocate for all of them. I'm going to put my mama bear hat on and I'm coming for you. Now I'm going to be willing to work with you. Yeah. But I'm also not going to give up on you either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I will walk beside the school hand in hand. And we were able to, he graduated perfectly fine. He's doing great. And he graduated. But I don't think that would have happened anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting. This is a philosophy that I've had, and it isn't new in talking with our team, but I've always said you can never judge an interaction with a mama bear or papa bear. Because that's their job. Well, first off, they can't control it most of the times. Does that sound true?
Yes.
And second what do you off, mean? I can control myself perfectly.
Yeah, but till you hit that nerve, right? But the reality is, it's actually just a passionate expression of really, they're just deeply interested in making sure they're getting the best for their kid. And so I think going back to that is, what you just said, I loved it, is when you coming out of the mama bear, you're always going to stick with them. And I think what we also have as a philosophy is we're going to meet our mama bears and papa bears when those things emerge. but we're also always going to stick with them too, because we recognize that's just a very passionate expression of the fact that they want what's best for their kids, and that's what we want too, right? So I do think we live in an interesting day and age where we do have to be intentional about making sure, though, that we're learning from each other. I appreciate what your example was. The school system had something to learn from that, and we benefited from it. Yeah. And I think that continues and has been true for a number of years.
They did. And we actually had a principal say, you guys were right. Yeah. We should have listened to you. You know your kid better than we do. And because we would say, well, this is what needs to happen, and that can't happen, and this can't. Autism's hard to handle. And so that it ended up being a really good experience. But man, it's exhausting as a parent to try to. But I just appreciate the public schools so much because they were willing to put up with us. I mean, we had some pretty interesting interactions over the years. But honestly, I was blessed because of it. And my kids have all done well. They all graduated from high school here, and 2 of them went on to college. And so, they got a good foundation in this school system.
Good.
So I want to circle back to something you said, and that's how you work with the whole family to help the whole family. So at the time of this taping, we are looking at food stamps being cut off. That's supposed to happen tomorrow. And so we're already addressing with the families we work with. If you can't get it anyplace else, let me know, and I will figure out how to get it for you. So the school has also had to step into that model in that. Do you guys still do the go home on the weekend bags?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm really happy that you brought that up. That was actually something exactly like what you just mentioned early on, hearing that, thinking, planning for it. One of the best things that we were able to identify through our research is, so first off, yes, we do the backpacks home. That is through privately funded efforts. So the lapse in SNAP will have no impact on our ability to continue that program forward.
That's awesome.
And free and reduced lunches are an example of questions that we continue to get raised as well. And I'm happy to report that those will continue as well unimpacted. But I do think that we know locally that as SNAP lapses for whatever amount of time it may, that we as a community are going to need to wrap around. And so I believe perhaps even next week, there's a community county-wide conversation around just making sure all agencies are coming together and are aware of the resources, because it's just good for us to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will never allow our families and our properties to go hungry. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And we've even helped people who are not part of our properties. We have partnerships with some of the other agencies, and we've said, hey, we got extra. Do you guys need something? And I mean, we're not spreading that out there, but we want to make sure that no one in our community is going hungry.
Well, and I want to put a plug in because we have an agreement with Starbucks. This is kind of off the subject a little bit. But we have an agreement with them that we pick up from their store here in McPherson twice a week. And people are like, oh, you get beverages? I'm like, no, we get real food. Yeah. So breakfast sandwiches and burritos, bagels, we get lunch stuff. We get some snack stuff too, but passing that on to the families that are in our cottages. And then we also share that with the Oxford Omega and the Learning Center, the Alternative Learning Center, to make sure that people that are on the edge, that we're helping everywhere we can, and that what you would call, air quote, food waste from Starbucks is not food waste. Yeah. It's actually going.
We make sure it's spread out everywhere that we can. So okay, let's go to another thing. I think we should talk about the role of school facilities. That's been a huge topic for the school system. Sure. So what about facilities? Why is it important to have quality facilities for your teachers and for your students? What's important about that?
Yeah, wonderful question. Yeah. Here's something interesting for you. The largest factor that influences student success in terms of the physical environment is the temperature in the classroom. Anybody that's ever sat in a room that feels too hot and stuffy on perhaps a too warm of a day or whatever it is. Yeah. You can remember reflecting on that, with your ability to concentrate on even the meeting or whatever it is. And when your hands are bone chillingly cold on some of those winter days, it's hard to concentrate. And so research is very clear that when the temperature, just that regulation isn't there, you actually see a decrease in student success. So why is that important? Well, we work on our HVAC, but we also have a lot of heating and air and a lot of opportunities to update. And that's just one example of how facilities can have a direct impact on the student teaching and learning experience. But, I think one of the things that facility enhancements, when you think about what we know to be true, is the reality is many times for families, the physical view of the buildings is a reflection to them of the values of the educational system and what kind of educational environment they think that their kid will be experiencing. And so we've been able to, over the last number of decades, obviously been able to extend the life of a lot of our facilities far beyond probably what they were designed for, which is a testament to McPherson as a community to be able to get as much out of their assets as they can. But we are starting to see that there's a deep interest in making sure that that our facilities match the creative, the innovative, the future-seeking direction that we really want to go as a community. And so I think as we have those conversations around transitioning away from a couple of our buildings and really reinvesting and enhancing some of our others, it's a great example of how we as a community can really invest in the values that we have for our community and make sure that continues to be a lasting impression for decades. So
here's a question that's not in your I just popped into my brain, but I was thinking about the Oak Harbor cottages. Our goal for the cottages to make it the most beautiful place,
right?
So that our families feel valued, that they have dignity, that they feel safe. So isn't that true about the school system, that our schools should reflect the beauty and how much we care about our kids and how much we value them? Shouldn't that be a part of this conversation? Because I feel like we keep missing that part. This school is not just about a building. It's about a place that kids love to be. They want to learn and grow. Families need to be proud to take them there. Shouldn't that, I'm not hearing that part of this conversation, is the beauty and just all of that, how we can make people feel, especially people that are on the fringes, on the low income, they need to feel valued. And a beautiful building with beautiful facilities and everything that they could dream of. Why are we not offering that to our kids? That's what we need.
Just cut that and we'll just keep that, just recirculate that.
Just loop that over and over and over.
No,
yeah.
I think what I would echo is that you posed it as shouldn't we or should we?
Yes.
I think the reality is that students do. They see the environments that they go to school in as a reflection of how they're valued. And I want to be clear, we have some really nice facilities in our system, and those students feel highly valued. And we have, not a surprise, a couple of our facilities, our middle school and high school in particular, that a solution needs to be found. And it is sending value statements to our students when they're going to school and to work, putting quotes around that, in the environment that they're in. And we just have an opportunity to really think about it. One of the things I was thinking about is, adequate facilities and how those kind of influence the community perception. I think what's been interesting is truly when buildings are outdated or they're in some sort of disrepair, it sends a signal to our families as well as our community that education may not be prioritized. And I think it is through that kind of a lens where the question of why is public school so important sometimes gets brought up, because there's some visual signals being sent that maybe it's not being prioritized. And I don't think that that's true in McPherson. To be clear, just from a statistics standpoint, McPherson High School, across the ABCTL, which is our league of athletics, which there's multiple divisions. I think there's, I'll say 24 high schools. U.S. News and World Report ranks every high school annually. And of that ABCTL, I believe last year we were either fourth or third.
Okay.
Oh, that's
out of the whole ABCTL.
Yeah.
So the reality is our actual, the student experience and kind of we're a top tier district. We're a top tier high school. We're seeing those kinds of, our students are really performing well. But that's not the sense that you get if you talk to our community. And I think it comes back to this idea of the perception that seems to be overshadowing this great work that's happening inside the classrooms. And it's partially just the visuals outside. So anyway, I think that, I think too many times communities equate the condition of schools to the quality of education that's offered. And I think that as we have opportunities to send value statements, that I think we'll have opportunities to start to have hopefully our community and others have a much better appreciation of the schools.
Okay, so I love everything you just put there, because it doesn't matter if you're the student, the parents, the teacher, the community, the way you perceive the building that we're sending our students into makes all the difference in the world. So let's talk about the flip side of that.
Okay.
Well-maintained facilities often see higher community involvement.
Yeah.
How do good facilities help attract resources, partnerships, or even volunteers?
Well, I love that question. I think, one of the things that's cool that we've been able to see and is through this facility conversation, we've seen a tremendous amount of interest in helping to volunteer and jump in. So I think that's important for our community to really notice and also celebrate.
Yeah.
I mean, we had literally hundreds that were interested in being a part of and were served as part of our community facility committee throughout this process thus far.
Yeah.
And so I think that volunteerism is there, but I think what I'm excited about is when we think about what other opportunities are. In our strategic plan, the board lays out 3 key areas: student success, partnerships and future-ready facilities, which we're talking about, and then culture, our empowering culture. The thing that I want to kind of point out is partnerships and future-ready facilities. The reason that is together in the board's strategic plan is because we had great dialogue over an entire year as we developed that plan, saw that those two are kind of always linked. You shouldn't have one without the other. And so I use that as a long way of saying we have a really great opportunity to develop and expand on partnerships with our local industry in CTE programs that we just aren't currently able to do. And some of those ideas we have known now, but back to what you said earlier, the creative and the all these kinds of opportunities that we know our community can come up with, even the ideas that we have the actual reality will far exceed that. But it's through those partnerships where we'll be able to see tremendous connections directly with our industry. Well, honestly, I can see a partnership with the Housing Coalition. As we've talked about before, we've got a great carpentry program that has historically developed and built a home every year. We could partner as a direct solution for helping to address housing, and they could be working on it as a part of their learning experience, and we could do that for decades to come.
Which would be amazing. It's kind of what they used to do.
Right.
My husband and my kids were all involved with that building trade because I wanted them to learn how to do something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a great idea to be. And we actually did buy one of your houses a long time ago. Yeah, it was a single mom with 4 kids. She had been renting for years. We helped her get a very inexpensive rural development loan, and today her family has thrived. I mean, wonderful. 2 of her kids are in college. The other 2 are working stable jobs. But that house was life-changing for that family.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the difference between her younger kids. I mean, her older ones struggling a little bit, and then her younger ones who got to live in it they were like 6. Unbelievable, the change that I saw with that family.
That goes back to our conversation about housing stability. If that's not an example for what we're talking about.
Unbelievable. She got a great job. She's doing amazing. Unbelievable. And I've seen that over and over and over again. I could tell you a million stories of being able to take families, stabilizing them, and then going out into the community and giving back. The kids are thriving. That's what we want. Yeah. 100%. For every single family, that's what we want.
Yeah, we always say here at the Housing Coalition, our primary focus is for families with children, because you have to stop the trauma with the children. Yeah. So you can start to reverse what the path that is they're walking down. Okay, so let's talk about safety for just a little bit. Safety is a growing concern in many schools. Yeah. And I'm going to vary just a little bit from the question here.
Okay.
We have a number of schools that have many outside doors.
Correct.
What are we doing to kind of address that issue where just because there's an outside door, it doesn't get propped open, you can't get in that way? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm just speaking specifically to that. We have some internal processes that we work with each of the building teams on to make sure that those are monitored and that that security remains a top priority at every one of our settings. We've also taken some other steps to really ensure that some of the perimeter of buildings are also secure, things like fencing and making sure. It's an interesting world that we live in now where safety and security in a different way than it had been previously perhaps remains at the top front. I think safety and security has always been a key focus for public schools, but we're thinking differently about what it is that we're protecting children from and how do we make sure that doesn't also send a unique signal. You know, we're not going to build concrete walls all the way around our playground because that sends an interesting image. Right. But we do have, right.
Not.
But I tell you, one of the things that I think is also worth talking about, and this is really what our facility conversation's been around for a lot of different things is, you know, safety goes beyond just what security systems we have. I mean, it includes things like air quality. That was a big topic earlier in the year at McPherson High School. We obviously assessed multitude of different things and tested for a multitude of different things to make sure, as we had a construction project in there, that everything was, the air quality was safe. But accessibility is a big component of that. ADA accessibility. You know, we want all of our learners to feel safe. Yeah. If you're stuck in an elevator, which hasn't happened, but that's an example of, you know, if you have that kind of equipment and it's not up and running all the time, what, you know, for all public schools, they have to think about that. And then just generally speaking, structural integrity and those kinds of things. But, you know, I mean, it goes without saying that obviously if students and staff aren't feeling safe, whether that's leaks, ventilation, infrastructure, whatever it is, obviously the teaching and learning experience isn't going to be optimal. So we're just trying to be cognizant of that as we take proactive steps to invest in our facilities and come up with not just safe and secure, for example, safe and secure entrances, which will make sure that we know how people are getting onto our campuses in the future and making sure that all of our kids are safe. But it's also about making sure that do we have the right air filtration systems in? Do we have the right climate control? Do we have the right ADA accessibility? So those are the things that are an integral part of the conversation that aren't just that maybe don't jump off of the map as being safety related to safety and security.
Well, that was really good. And so here's another final question before we close.
Sure.
No, this is on the paper. This is a question that we have to, not my personal, I thought of this just a minute ago
you
question.
Can do that too,
I know. I do that a lot. So if I'm in the community and I really want to get involved with school, no matter where I live, I don't know about overseas or Europe. I don't know how that all works. But let's say across America, if I want to get involved with my schools, how do I do it? What's the process?
First and foremost, I would be shocked if the answer wouldn't be reach out to a building principal, reach out to the superintendent. I have people do that all the time. We've been able to have some of our greatest volunteers reached out here locally. They said, "Hey, I moved from Georgia. I was a teacher for a long time. I served as a paraprofessional. I just want to volunteer. Are there any opportunities?" And I was able to take that. First off, thank that person and get them directly into contact with my principals. And we have those people helping tutor kids.
Okay.
We have folks, our schools started to do I can't remember the name of it, but they basically take parent and grandparent volunteers and they have them help. You can volunteer your 1 hour, 2 hour, half a day, full day if you want. And they'll come in and it gets to be whatever it needs to be. If they're there during lunchtime, they get to help hang out and high five kids and monitor and make sure everything's. So we have a multitude of here locally in McPherson, but I know the same has to be true across basically anyone. I just would reach out. And I'll tell you what, principals and, superintendents, certainly anyone out there, I guess can't speak for all of them, but we love to hear from interested community members. And our goal here locally is always to try to help plug them in because that's what makes our school system so great. here in McPherson is what makes our community so great.
And as I say to our listeners all the time, get involved. Don't be the guy behind the screen saying all this stuff that's not nice. Go volunteer, help your neighbor, go to the food bank, go to the schools, wherever you are. Get connected and be part of the solution.
Yeah, if you want to see change, be a part of that change.
Yes.
So it's very clear that housing and education go hand in hand. And when families and teachers have stability at home, strong facilities at school, everything else improves achievement, well-being, and community connection.
School is definitely the cornerstone of our communities, and we got to remember that public school is that.
Well, thank you for listening today. Thank you, Shiloh, for being with us today.
This was great.
And if you would like to hear somebody on our podcast, if you would like to be on our podcast, you can reach out to us. Chris, what is that address? On that paper right there.
Oh, there it is right there. Housing for Good at McPhersonHC.org.
You would think after a year of doing this, I would know it.
Yeah, you would think so.
Say it again.
It is Housing for Good at McPhersonHC.org.
Thanks for listening.
And have a great day.